Charles, very quickly, can you give me just a bit more info on Wisdom's PMD?
Sure. So PMD, or planar magnetic driver, is a Wisdom technology, and it's sort of what gives Wisdom their signature sound. So quite often we have end users and clients come through the showroom here, and we set them in front of some Wisdom audio, and they go, there's just a clarity, a fidelity in there that I've just not heard before. And a lot of that, most of it comes down to this. So this is actually their PMD material. So this is our planar magnetic driver. And how this compares to a normal speaker is we have a normal speaker cone and a tweeter. In fact, this is actually our drive unit. So this is playing all of our high and our mid frequencies. So by not having a crossover where we have to mix sound between different levels of driver that are designed to do different things, we have one drive unit doing everything. So we have a full range here from 20,000 kilohertz to sort of 650 hertz at the
So for our user, so we're a bit more user friendly. So we're saying low frequencies, which is where your bass is, and a high frequency, which is where you get your vocals essentially. So you're saying we do that all within one piece of material
down to a certain point. So I think that probably the best example when we say people really hear detail in music that they haven't previously heard is that where we would say crossover from a tweeter to a mid-range driver is where the female vocal sits. So around 1500 kilohertz is where female vocal is. So take well-produced music like London Grammar, for example. That's the one I use all the time. Is where we would normally lose detail, where we switch between speakers and the crossover. Because that's not happening because of what the PMD is capable of producing, we don't lose any detail in our music there.
I love that. Okay.
So that's very quickly what the PMD is.
Love it. Hope that made sense, guys.
Yeah, sorry if that went in too deep. It's hard to not sort of geek out about this.
It's true. It's hard to not go too techy, isn't it?
It is, especially when you're as much of a nerd as I am.
See, that's the thing. The whole notion of what we're trying to do here is we're trying to explain to our users that so you have an appreciation for the technology behind it, but at the same time, it's not what you interact with daily. You interact with the daily experience of the room, the ambience.
We're the guys that do the planning.
Exactly.
We make it work.
Exactly. But we're just telling you why it works like that.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
Brilliant.
So, I think while we're in here, it might be kind of good to just very, very quickly say, what's behind the walls, because we didn't do that in there. We talked very quickly about acoustic treatment, but this is actually quite a nice tie-in, because in the other room, with the acoustic design we have in here, these rooms sound the same. You're trying to make a room of any size acoustically behave exactly the same way.
So just so we can just reiterate what you mean by acoustically say the same. So we're saying we want to maintain the sound within the room, or maintain the integrity of what's coming out of the speakers.
So what we're trying to do what we're trying to really do with acoustic treatment of rooms is we're trying to take out the anomalies in the room, right? So any echoes, any flutters, that sort of thing, we can't correct with room correction, right? So if those things exist in the room, you can't digitally correct those, right? They're going to be there. The whole idea of these panels is to give you a really nice baseline frequency response of how the room is. I've explained this like 100 times. I don't know why I'm stuttering.
So can I jump in there again? I'm an engineer, but I'm not a sound engineer, right? So coming to your domain from my perspective, I would probably say that these are helping to absorb the sound, so that, for example, when that sound is dished out in one way, it's not being disturbed by the sound coming back.
Kind of, yeah. I think there's a common misconception when it comes to acoustic treatment is that we need to absorb everything. So if you were to take these nicely fabric wrapped Desmond and Sons panels off the wall, you'd very quickly see that actually a lot of the panels in this room that has been properly designed by Cinematech are actually more reflective than absorptive.
Okay.
So I think that's probably a common misconception is we need to take everything out of the room, because if you can, you know what it's like when you've got a head cold and you just feel really stuffy and there's no sound moving anywhere. You don't want that. It's a very fine line and there's a science to it. And what we do by planning these rooms properly is we take out all the guesswork, because let's just say, for example, you're going to use rock wool and you're just going to put a load of that in the walls. It's going to absorb all the sound. There's going to be there's going to be no reverb. There's going to be no life in that room. You're going to take all the energy and the sound out of the room.
Yeah.
And that will kill your cinema. You don't want to do that.
Okay.
All right.
So you want cool. So you want materials that essentially reflect in a way that you want it to reflect.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You're controlling how the sound behaves in the room, and that's by using the right panels in the right locations. We can do that.
Why did you say that? Love it. So we got there in the end. So that's the acoustic treatment. What about again, like even little things about positioning of the seats? You know, distance. You know, the throw ratio between the projector and the screen, etc. If it is a projector, obviously. Yeah. We touch on those parts, and again, just really quickly,
Sure. So again, it goes back to good planning, which is why we work with the right people. You, I think.
Obviously.
No, obviously, of course. So
we try.
It's really down to good planning, project management. So if we can work out from day one exactly where the hot seat's going to be, because let's not remember, we try and make a good experience for everybody,
but the best. But
there's always a best seat.
Are we in the best seats?
No, it's one row back. Middle row, dead center. That's where this room's calibrated for anyway. Craig spent many hours in here with Steve from Wisdom.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah, and Steve.
And
Steve from Wisdom Audio as well.
Love it.
This room really was their baby, and they've spent a long time in here making minute changes. No, they've made a lot of tweaks in here. This is their baby. So in this room, our seat behind us is our hot seat, and the whole room is sort of set up and designed around that position. We want to have everybody to have a good experience, but there is always the hot seat, whole position. And
that's something that I think is quite important for people to know, because again, one would assume that if you've got a cinema room, you can sit anywhere in there, really, pretty much.
100%. And we see it a lot in actual seating position. Let's say we have a media multi-purpose room. We haven't got loads of space. Typically in London at the moment, there's much smaller properties, and the rooms that we're converting don't have bundles of room. Is people whack a sofa up against the back wall and they want rear surround sound, right? But you're on the back wall. So what do? You've got a speaker here.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a nice experience, right?
Exactly.
And you won't get that effect. So we can, if we know about these things, we can plan around them. We can put our ears on the sides. Sounds weird, but sometimes it's a balance of compromise.
Makes sense. So just one last point to touch on before we wrap up. Well, where would this sort of cinema sit in comparison to like a commercial cinema room?
So,
you go to the cinemas?
Yeah, I mean, this room is actually a bit of a killer for me, because I don't really go to commercial cinema anymore. Obviously, I'm a bit spoilt here at Habitech. We've got two full demo cinemas, but I think a common misconception is commercial cinema is just the best experience you'll ever have. But there's a reason why people are putting these in their homes, right? And the level we can go to with residential can far outperform your average commercial cinema.
Wow.
Especially in this room, there's solutions in here that just once you've heard them, you don't want to go back from.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that.